Welcome everyone to this pictorial presentation entitled Designing Physical Artifacts for Tangible Narratives, Lesson Learned from Letters to Jose. My name is Echeverri and I'm also presenting on behalf of Huaxin. We're both from the School of Design at the Hong Kong Polytechnic University. The purpose of this pictorial really is to reflect upon the design and making of Letters to Jose, which is a tangible narrative that we built during the last 3 years as a practice-led research project. The purpose of our paper really is to integrate different concepts that we brought from the design of tangible user interfaces, but also aspects brought from theories of narrative and interactive narrative. This presentation is going to be organized in the following way. First, we're going to start with a quick overview of tangible narratives, and then we're going to present Letters to Jose. Second, we'll discuss some of the creative explorations that we did during this research. And finally, we conclude by proposing a visual typology that can describe and define artifacts for this type of narratives. If we're going to characterize narratives, we could say that they are a form of interactive digital narratives. Usually in the world of human-computer interaction, they're described as interfaces, as platforms, or as environments. But ultimately, the purpose of this type of narratives is first to construct a story world where there are interfaces, where are objects, where there is an environment or system environment, and where there's narrative multimodal content. The purpose of technology in this type of narratives is to support the narrative itself, and they allow somehow through interactivity, they allow people to create a story and to play with different aspects of the narrative. If we're going to talk specifically about Letters to Jose, this picture shows some of the panels, some of the paper worlds, as we like to call them. Letters to Jose is a nonlinear narrative inspired by a set of letters, a group of letters that Jesus, who used to be my grandfather, and his brother Jose wrote to each other during the late 1940s. Has a hybrid experience in the sense that it mixes both physical and digital means. This tangible narrative is presented as 3 physically unfolded story worlds or paper worlds, like the ones that we showed in the previous picture, in the previous slide. And they combine different paper mechanisms with visual, performative, and auditory features. If you want to see more information about Letters to Jose, you can scan this QR code and it will take you to a video with more details about the experience. Now, if we want to talk about creative exploration, for the past 3 years, we designed Letters to Jose, and we could argue that there were 3 types of explorations. One is material exploration. We try to find ways to make things. And so this is where we talk about using different materials, different techniques, different substrates. How do we build specific objects, ultimately leading to early prototypes of the experience. The second type of exploration, we referred to it as functional exploration, and it was more about how do we use the artifacts? What are the functional considerations? In the way the relationships between the movable artifacts and some of the panels, as the one that you saw in the previous slides, they can be a representation of the story world. And finally, interactivity exploration was more of how do we convey the story while people engage with the narrative. And so in certain way, through interactivity exploration, we figure out ways to make things mean. So through interactivity, the user, the interactor, was able not only to convey actions, but also to perform meaningfully with the narrative. So through these methods, such as prototyping and annotating and sketches, we created systematic evidence of our research process and our design process. And so through that experimentation, we created new knowledge. Obviously, that knowledge came along with the empirical study that we conducted with existing literature, obviously. And so from the perspective of tangible user interfaces, we were able to explain how the artifact bounds to digital content from the narrative. If we look from the perspective of narratology, the purpose was more to understand what the role of the artifact in the narrative was. But there was a theoretical void that we noticed, and is how can we describe these artifacts and how can we describe the qualities? And so based on our evidence, including our study results, we noticed that we could describe these artifacts in a tangible narrative system in a more generalized and systematic way. And so while existing theory on tangible interfaces could describe some of these properties from the artifacts, some of the models and some of the existing frameworks fall short, especially when seen from the perspective of narratology. And so based on our refined reflections, based on the empirical study results, and obviously existing narrative theory, we frame the artifacts that have a narrative purpose beyond system operative functions as artifacts for storytelling. These artifacts can be described in three qualities. First, the artifact's diegesis. Second, the artifact's embodiment. And third, the artifact's function in the narrative. Each quality can be described using different indicative levels or values. So to put it in a better way, there is a real world inhabited by an interactor. Inside that real world, there's a presentation space. That presentation space is where everything the experience offers and where everything of the experience is happening. And inside the presentation space, there's a story world that it's inhabited by characters that describe different events and that people will engage with. Inside the presentation space, the real world, the story world, there are different artifacts which people can engage with. Some of those artifacts are placed inside the story world. Some of those artifacts are placed in the presentation. Some of those artifacts are placed in the real world. Whichever way, we describe these artifacts on three qualities. The first one is the diegesis of the artifacts, which describes in what way the artifact is placed in the time and space of the narrative. And so we have diegetic artifacts. They exist in the real world and they exist in the story world in the same way and represent the same thing. There are transdiegetic artifacts which somehow bridge the story world with the presentation of the real world, and they are represented differently. And extradiegetic artifacts, which are outside of the story world. They reside only on the presentation space. Then we have the function of the artifact. If it's ontological, it means that the artifact has a real impact on the story world and can change the plot, for instance. And exploratory artifacts, which allow the interactor just simply to explore different paths, but it does not have an impact on the plot of the story. And then we describe the embodiment of the artifact, meaning how close is the action and the outcome of that action. And so we have fully embodied artifacts where the action is in the outcome is manifested in the artifact itself. There are coupled artifacts in which one artifact is coupled to another and the outcome happens right there where that coupling is happening. And then non-graspable embodiment, which refers to a relationship that is outside of that space where the action happened. It's completely disconnected. Now, the relationship between artifacts and the environment are crucial in the way people perform and people understand the narrative and the story. And so while these relationships are conditioned by artifacts and qualities, and the qualities that we described in the previous slides, the embodied and tangible interaction method used or applied to an artifact also has a critical role. And so how do we describe those methods? We could say they are space directed in which the artifact and the user or the interactor negotiates a space. Body directed, in which the artifact creates a relationship with the interactor's body, so it can be wore or it can be moved through the hand, for instance. Or artifact directed, in which the artifact has relationships to itself, things that can change in the artifact, or that has a relationship with other artifacts. And so these methods, they mediate between the interactor and the artifact itself. Ultimately, what happens across this artifact for storytelling and the way people engage is it fosters empathy, it fosters identification of the interactor with some of the events or some of the characters described, it fosters the immersion into the narrative, it helps the development of mental imagery and people imagining what happens in the story, and ultimately leading to a sense of reward. So through this typology, we look to unify concepts both from tangible interaction and narrative. And we hope that these two typologies can guide the future work in the design of tangible narratives. We intend, or we look to provide authors and designers with just very basic concepts that can help them design engaging narratives that go beyond the two-dimensional, the b-dimensional world into what the real world is. Tangible storytelling stands out from other forms of digital narrative because it is about playing with real tangible things, real tangible objects that exist in the real world. Designing tangible narratives mean that the designer and the author needs to find ways for people to play make-believe with those artifacts and with the narrative. So artifacts for storytelling are simply props, but they have a very particular purpose. They have very particular imagings. They make the fictional world, they make it real. This concludes our presentation. Thank you very much. Feel free to reach out to us via email. Thank you again, and we look forward to hearing from you.